Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Beep Beep event, in which the Sandrunner is added to the game, so let's get into that. As far as his Arcane Trait Stone, you end up getting brown-yellow. Earlier on in the game, you'd want to put it into Cockatrice, and later on in the game, you'd want to use it for Gorgulfa. Cockatrice is a really good disable, Gorgulfa a really good tank. So, as far as the Sandrunner, it is pretty average. It's more so a early game kind of troop, somewhat in the vein of Knight Coronet, except probably slightly less useful overall than a Knight Coronet. But he deals damage to the first and last enemy, which is the exact same thing Knight Coronet does. However, it does not do it in the same way. For example, if it only has one enemy left, it will only hit it once, it will not hit it twice, whereas Knight Coronet hits it twice, and then it deals double the damage to a random enemy. This can, however, hit the exact same enemy. So, for example, it's going to hit the first and last, and then it's going to randomly hit another one for double, and that random one that it hits can be one of the same ones that it just hit for first and last. But for example, if there's only one enemy left, it's only going to hit it 2 times rather than 3, simply because the first and last will only hit the one remaining enemy once instead of twice. It'll still be hit by its base damage and the double damage thing for the second hit, but it will not be hit by all 3. As far as its abilities, it does have Bloodlust, so it gains Enrage for extra skull damage every single time it ends up getting a kill, or anything on your team ends up getting a kill, and then it has a 75% mana start, which will allow you to spam this a little bit, but it doesn't really have any boost ratio or anything attached to it, so its damage isn't going to be ridiculously high. It's a little bit towards the lower side. For the most part, you'd mainly just use it this week in order to farm gold, but it could be an okay early game option if you just needed some extra damage in various teams. It's cheap enough, only 300 glory. Anyways, other event stuff we have 10% all monsters and 10% all elementals. As I mentioned, we also get 400 gold every single time we use this in PvP or Explore. Obviously, just plopping it onto some kind of Explore team would probably be your best bet if you want to try utilizing that. Otherwise, try doing casual PvP 1 trophy battles would be the other easiest way of doing that. And unfortunately, we got to go do a bunch of treasure hunt this week. Whenever there is a treasure hunt event, it is insanely good value to be doing treasure hunt. It will give you a lot of gems on top of the gems that you're already gaining from treasure hunt, and a few gem keys once you finally reach the end of it. It only takes like 2 hours or less, and if you have like 100 maps laying around, you could easily get it done without even spending or going out of your way to farm any maps, which most people probably have about that many. And if not, you could easily just buy them for glory or use Tyree to farm them up real quick, or even skeleton key teams can farm them at a somewhat okay rate. Anyways, that's everything with that. As far as event keys, I would not really bother with it this particular week. There isn't anything that's too over the top. Maybe Great Maul. It is a drifting sands event, so as far as the actual things that we have as available drops, come on, drip menu, go. As far as things that we have as actual drops is, come on, drifting sands. Just everything that's ultra rare and above here. Which really isn't much. It's basically just great, as far as relevant ones, it's basically just the Great Maul. Rock Spirit, I guess, in early games a pretty nice option if you just wanted to go and pick one up. And the only other thing that's maybe even remotely good is Scorpius, though I feel like I've barely been using him at all. Main thing that's noteworthy on him is he has Impervious into +1 to all browns per turn. He does potentially have a double instant kill, but there's more things with immune to poison than any other immune in the entire game, so it's a little bit hard for him to actually get his instant kills due just to the sheer number of immunities that exist out there for the instant kill. So as far as the guild-related event, we do have Invasions this week, a decent weapon too. These weapons don't really ever come back too often, so do make sure to get it, either in the Soul Forge or just by getting it with gems. But it's basically one that boosts based on monsters. There's not anything too over the top that this weapon can currently be used for, but it's pretty good in the current event, since you'll just be able to get a lot of green and brown mana for all of your monster teams. And since you're going to be restricted to that anyways, we're restricted to just using monsters for this event, so you're going to get quite a bit of value from using that. As far as the team I'm going with a double sharp tooth with the Crystal Axe into Arachnine Weaver. If you do not have Arachnine Weaver, you can replace it out with Exorator. If you don't currently have Exorator, you could throw shards in the Underworld at All-Seeing Eye, and you would eventually get it pretty quickly. Sharp Tooth is just the new invasion troop that they added. It has a 30% chance to extra turn and a 30% chance to get its mana back. It's also pretty decent for an invasion troop, which is why I decided to go double this time around, because it has Bloodlust, and it has the, which allows it to hit through traits like the 75% reduction, as well as just doing more skull damage, 1.5 times, but also has skull reduction, and of course just the standard traits that make it do more damage than it normally would. So double that, Hero with Titan as the weapon. or any hero class that you want to gain mana to, and or X-Raiders just for the replacement. And if you only wanted to go with one Sharp Tooth, you'd probably want to put some kind of yellow into your team, since you're probably not using Arachnine Weaver at that point either. So you would just put any kind of yellow that has a decent damage source that would be able to fit into your team, and you'd pretty much just be good to go. So that's essentially what we're going to be running. I'll be running this particular version of it just because we have it. It does allow us to cover every color, and it allows us to get quite a bit of mana off of Arachnine Weaver, particularly for the earlier battles, but even in the later ones, these things are going to reach a point where they don't kill. I believe they're actually at a point right now where they stopped killing just because I currently have them at Legend instead of Mythic. But we're actually going to hold that for just a little bit, as we don't need it immediately right here. Let's go take a brown. Grab the last little bit of our mana that we can grab for free. Grab the, I guess, more annoying. Is that even the more annoying tower? Not even sure. But as you can see right there, we not only got our extra turn, but we also got our full mana back. Both of these 30% do run independently. So it's possible you get neither. It's possible you get one. It's possible you get both. As you saw right there, we actually got both the extra turn and all of our mana back. So pretty convenient. Then we just use Arachnine Weaver to clean it up. And now we basically start this Arachnine Weaver spam, and we do our pokes where we need. Just keep getting them down. Hope that it gets extra turns and triggers his 50%. And yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of this event. As far as difficulty on it, I would say it's about average. Maybe a little bit easier just because this weapon is, at least in the context of this event, is at least somewhat decent. If you have Arachnine Weaver, it's quite a bit easier too. You don't get to use the web aspect or anything like that, but you do have a backup summon. And you do end up having the just the explosion every single time you end up wiping out that kill. So it gets a lot of value out of actually getting kills, but main thing that's the whole premise of this team is basically just Sharp Tooth into this weapon, and it's essentially just a mana loop and just hoping that you can eventually get lucky enough with all these abilities just to constantly keep getting his mana back and or getting extra turns, and that's pretty much the entirety of Invasions this week. Definitely worth doing. Invasions is probably the most profitable. Other than Guild Wars, it's probably the most profitable event as far as all of them are concerned. So, as far as the guild-related ones. But anyways, as far as other events, we have the Sea of Sorrows this Tuesday. We have a Primal Pet coming this Wednesday. This is a new one. Primal Pet is the one that's related to the 6 imps. So Imp of Love, Winter Imp, stuff like that. There's never any team that would ever end up utilizing this, so this is basically just like a cosmetic pet since its actual purpose is pretty much useless, but still a new pet nonetheless. This Thursday, we actually have nothing, because this Friday, we are gaining a new hero class. It is a Urskea hero class. A Urskea hero class from Urska, of course. And as far as how good it will be, it's questionable. It's possible to start with half mana, but you have to use the troop. It doesn't naturally have half mana. The most noteworthy thing about this hero class is it is going to be the tankiest hero class in the game, and could potentially forever be the tankiest hero class in the game. It has 2 trees that are really defensive. It has the gain barrier every brown. It has start battle with barrier. It has 40% score reduction. And on top of all that, it has a unique trait of a 25% per turn to randomly barrier an ally. So as far as hero class tanking is concerned, it's probably going to be the absolute tankiest. The only real main aspect is missing, as I mentioned, is the half mana start. But there is a Urska that does start all Urskas with half mana. So it is possible, kind of like how Ironforge can half mana your Dwarven hero class. That's going to be kind of the same premise with the Urska that ends up giving all Urskas half mana. I actually forget its name off the top of my head just because it's normally irrelevant. Unfortunately, Urskas are a little bit of an irrelevant type, but you know, as more get into the game, could become more viable. And even just the hero class itself, just for tanking, might find its way into some various teams. It's going to have really high just mitigation to damage. It's also going to have pretty decent attack, since it gains 1 attack per turn off the Urska thing, and I believe it has the morale tree, which also has a few other attack bonuses in it, like I believe 5 extra attack on PvP, like a few other extra things in there, like 2 to all stats. It also has leadership traits, so it's going to start with 5 to all stats, which is going to be pretty nice. Assuming it's in first slot, and given that it's a tank, you're probably going to be using it in first slot. So yeah, really, really interesting hero class. It's not like Titan level good, but yeah, it could definitely be top 3. It has potential. We'll just have to see exactly how it pans out. Anyway, Soulforge related stuff. What do we have? We have ourselves basically the choice of Ubistet and Megavore. Though I didn't even realize that until just now. Technically, the Arachnine Weaver I'm using in the event is actually here too. I wouldn't really advise Arachnine Weaver. You could technically just go use Megavore in the event too. I didn't really mention that earlier if you wanted to. They're both monsters. It's kind of funny that they have a bunch of monster options. But Yeah, I would say the two biggest ones are Ubistet and Megavore. Probably more so Ubistet if you had to choose one or the other. Main reason is Ubistet's actually required for 10-star Pride lands, whereas Megavore is currently not required for 10 stars, so you won't get any extra stats. They both also serve essentially the exact same role, kind of. They're both used for high-level content that has really high stats, so mainly things like delves and such. So both of them can do that role very, very well. And they can be used for PvP, they can be used for pretty much anything for the most part, even Guild Wars, Tower of Doom, stuff like that. But I would say one of those two, particularly Ubistet, would probably be the better craft if you do want to go for one. As far as cheaper stuff, I wouldn't really advise it, but if you truly needed a stun or mana drain option, Corvash is still the best stunner in the entire game, really good against lusts and other things that might use their traits pretty well. It has a stun every single time it extra turns, which is insanely good. It has a double true damage hit into a double full mana drain into a double stun. So it gets to get a lot of value on this. It's pretty bad against things that are in 3rd or 4th slot that you need to hit. But as far as two upfront troops that are like really skull dependent, like let's say skull mitigation and stuff like that, pretty good against those. But I don't know, I probably wouldn't go out of your way to go craft that. It's a really nice troop to have, but it's probably not worth the 800 diamonds compared to putting that towards a mythic. Anyways, that's everything in Soulforge. Basically, bottom line, probably Ubistet, maybe Megavore. And if you had nothing else to craft, probably Arachnean Weaver. But anyways, other things. Let me just go real quick and show the Explore thing real quick. Of course, there's a couple different ways that you can go and farm a bunch of gold this week, if you so choose. As far as something that you can use super early on in the game, like pretty much just starting the game, for the most part, Knight Coronet, Sandrunner, Alchemist, and Leprechaun. You could even replace in your hero there if you want to try gaining some hero XP, like replacing out Knight Coronet with it. But basically, you have first and last slot hit. You have another first and last slot hit. You have Alchemist to feed both of them, and you have Leprechaun for more mana. So you basically just keep doubling up the Knight Coronet into Sandrunner combination, and just win out the battle that way. But as far as Explorer is concerned, just using it with any kind of pretty standard Explorer team. We're running here with Sunbird, Sandrunner, Firebomb, and our hero with whatever hero class we want to level, ideally 1.5 mana start. And you basically just go and use Jar of Eyes, which you get from the All-Seeing Eye event. If you want to go get that in, I believe, a few weeks. Should be available in like 2 or 3 weeks again, if you don't already have it. But alternatively, you can use that one Primal Weapon that uses all colors, that does some split damage. Would also be pretty decent. But right here, just want to go try getting the last of our mana for Sunbird, because that alone, I do not think is going to be enough damage to actually wipe out. But we'll easily just go get our Explosion there. No way we could ever lose with a Jar of Eyes with all the summons we get. But basically, just keep repeating that. It's about 1,000 gold or so per battle. And yeah, you can end up getting quite a bit of gold while farming for all of your shards. It's a little bit slower than using a normal team, but it's relatively cheap. Like, hero could be pretty much anything. Ideally, it would help the team, but it's not really a necessity. As far as all the necessities, you only need 300 glory, a Sunbird, and a Firebomb fully traded, which are all relatively cheap, easy things to obtain. So a great way to go get some gold this week and farm a bunch of trait stones that you might end up needing. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for now. If you guys still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone!